This is another video on poems. So this time the poem is Charge of the Light Brigade by Lord Alfred Tennyson. So this is the poem. The actual poem has 6 stanzas, but in the literature component for Form 4 there are only 3 stanzas. Okay, now let's look at the poem. The Charge of the Light Brigade by Alfred Tennyson. Half a league, half a league, half a league onward, all in the valley of death, rode the 600. Forward the Light Brigade, charge for the guns, he said. Into the valley of death, rode the 600. Forward the Light Brigade. Was there a man dismayed? Not though the soldier knew. Someone had blundered. Theirs not to make reply, theirs not to reason why, theirs but to do and die. Into the valley of death rode the 600. Cannon to the right of them, cannon to the left of them, cannon in front of them, volleyed and thundered, stormed at with shot and shell. Boldly they rode and well, into the jaws of death, into the mouth of hell, rode the 600. Information. The Charge of the Light Brigade is an 1854 narrative poem by Alfred Lord Tennyson about the charge of the Light Brigade at the Battle of Balaclava during the Crimean War. He wrote it on 2nd December 1854 and it was published on 9 December 1854 in the Examiner. This poem is about the 600 soldiers, British soldiers, as mentioned in the poet's background. It is also about the heroism and courage of a brigade. Many died in the battle, which is called the Crimean War, which was from 1854 to 1856. The soldiers belonged to a light brigade, which means they were on horseback and armed only with sabres and batons or light arms. By some mistake, by one in the poem, maybe the commander, they were ordered into a valley which had heavily armed Russian enemy battalions on 3 sides, front, left and right. The Russians were fully armed, and they were very powerful and they had powerful cannons. Now, when the Light Brigade charged into this valley of death, they were massacred by the cannon's fire. Yes, most of them died, but they showed great heroism and patriotism in battle. Form: the 6-stanza poem with no fixed rhyme scheme. Okay, or the rhyme scheme of this poem is quite irregular, and it is composed by 6 stanzas with 8, 9, 9, 12, 11 and 6 verses respectively. But for your poem, there are only 3 stanzas. Language. The rhythm of the opening lines, half a league, half a league, half a league onward, creates a relentless beat which is continued throughout the poem. This rhythm echoes the sound and pace of the horse's hoofs, while reflecting the Light Brigade's gallop into battle on horseback. Tennyson uses a falling rhythm. This means that the stress is on the first beat of each metrical unit and then weakens for the rest of the length of the meter. The use of falling rhythm is appropriate as the charge of the Light Brigade focuses on the devastating fall of the army in this particular battle. Tennyson's heavy use of repetition also communicates the relentlessness of the charge and the danger all around. Now let's look at the vocabulary. We have the word league. The meaning is an obsolete unit of distance of around 3 meters. So valley, a long depression in the surface of the land. Normally, valley is surrounded by mountains. Okay, next we have brigade. Brigade is army unit smaller than a division. Charge is to make a rush at or sudden attack upon, as in battle. Dismayed is struck with fear, dread or consternation. Then we have the next one, blunder. Blunder means to commit a fault or make a serious mistake. Cannon. Cannon is a large artillery gun that is usually on wheels. Volley. Volley is to discharge in or as if in a rapid burst of gunfire. Thunder. Make or produce a loud noise. Shell is the ammunition consisting of a cylinder metal casing containing an explosive charge or a projectile fired from a large gun. Bold, fearless and daring. Now we're going to move on to meaning line by line. Okay, let's look at stanza 1. So half a league, half a league, half a league onward. A league is an old way to measure distance and equals to about 3 miles. So half a league is roughly a mile and a half. The brigade or the battalion was charging forward in the battlefield for a mile and a half. Okay, the third line, all in the valley of death, the place where many soldiers would die in battle. Line 4, rode the 600. The exact number of soldiers was 600 riding horses. And line 5, forward the Light Brigade. This means the captain commanded the soldiers to move forward bravely. In 1854, there was a charge of the Light Brigade during the Crimean War. Then line 6, charge for the guns, he said. The soldiers were ordered by the captain to attack. And line 7 and 8, into the valley of death rode the 600. The soldiers moved to the battlefield, prepared to fight and to die fighting. The brigade was ordered into the valley, even though they knew that they were going to die. Emphasis on the small number of soldiers, few but brave soldiers riding on horseback. For stanza 2, line 1, forward the Light Brigade. Again, the captain commanded the soldiers to move forward. Line 2, was there a man dismayed? Was there any soldier who would lose his courage, be terrified or sad? Line 3, not though the soldier knew. Of course, the Light Brigade was too tough and loyal to feel dismayed. These men did not feel discouraged at all. They were ready to do their job even though the order might be crazy, which is to meet their death. Okay, line 4. Someone had blundered. This means the soldiers knew that this charge was not a good idea, that someone had made a mistake. Then we go to line 5, 6 and 7. Theirs not to make reply, theirs not to reason why, theirs but to do and die. So the soldiers were loyal and obedient. They did not talk back to their commander or captain. So it means that they didn't make any reply. Or to figure out the point of the attack, so they didn't try to find the reason why. The last one, all they could do was to ride and fight and possibly die. Next, lines 8 and 9, we have into the valley of death rode the 600. Repetition of stanza 1, which is to emphasize courage, bravery, loyalty, commitment or duty. Then we have stanza 3. So we have line 1, 2, 3, 4. Cannon to the right of them, cannon to the left of them, cannon in front of them, volleyed and thundered. The soldiers were surrounded by enemy cannons on their left, right and front. Bad news for the Light Brigade because they were actually surrounded by enemies. So the huge walls of cannon all around them were firing and making a sound like thunder. Line 5, stormed at with shot and shell. So the soldiers in the Light Brigade were being shot at with bullets and big explosives fired from the cannon, a violent, noisy, destructive force that sounded like a storm. 6. Boldly they rode and well. These soldiers were not scared of the gunfire. They rode bravely, confidently, and with determination. It shows us how heroic these men were. Lines 7 and 8. Into the jaws of death, into the mouth of hell. They were ready or they were willing to die of honor. Hell is suffering and torture. But the soldiers were brave. Okay, line 9, wrote the 600. There were 600 brave or courageous soldiers. They are men of honor. The setting, the place is a battlefield in Crimea, Russia. The time is in the 19th century. Point of view, the poem is narrated by an omniscient, all-seeing narrator who reports not only the action but the thoughts and the spirits of the 600 men as a collective unit. So this is the third person point of view. Tone. Since the poem is about war, so it is clear that the tone and mood is quite intense. And then the general tone of the poem is also of praise and amazement at the courageous actions of the soldiers. We look at moral values. So remember, for moral values, you need to write we should or we must. So number 1, we must struggle for peace, not war. Number 2, we must be loyal to our superiors or our captains and commanders. 3, we must show great discipline as it is important in our life. 4, we should always be brave in facing challenges in life. Now let's move on to the themes. The first theme is heroism and courage. The charge of the Light Brigade issues a clear call to celebrate the heroism of soldiers who surrender themselves to a greater cause. Throughout the poem, Tennyson calls attention to the valor, technical skill, and willingness to trust in their leaders. According to the poem by Tennyson, the soldiers knew that they were up against a battle-armed enemy, which were the Russians, yet they charged into battle with great courage. Okay, theme number 2, the tragedy of war or warfare. As we all know, war is not the best thing ever created by man. We tend to think that by having war, we could solve many problems. The same concept can be applied in this poem. How many loved ones have been sacrificed just for the sake of war? Yes, Tennyson wrote about the 600 soldiers who were involved in the charge, but the counterpart, the Russians too, must have suffered from loss. Next, we have number 3, loyalty and patriotism. As we know that this poem is less about mourning and more about appreciating the loyalty of the British soldiers. They knew well that their leader, the captain, had mistakenly commanded the brigade to charge towards the enemy because the latter was quite stronger with superior weapons. Yet, rather than thinking rationally, the soldiers marched towards the enemy and attacked them. The whole poem celebrates their loyalty and patriotism. This is why the poem calls them Noble 600 in the end of the poem. But this is not in your poem, okay? Number 4, duty. From the poem, even though the soldiers knew that someone has blundered, still they had a strong sense of duty. It is almost like it's their duty to protect the country of their own. They had this thought of they need to protect their families, their friends, parents, and they had to do it. Why? It is because they obeyed the order given to them. We have reached the questions and answers. These are the exercises. So, A. Why is the location of this battle called the Valley of Death? The answer is it is called the Valley of Death to emphasize that it is the place where the soldiers will die in battle. B. Whom does the pronoun he in line 6 refer to? The pronoun he refers to the leader of the 600 soldiers or the captain. What does the word dismayed mean? Dismayed means sad or discouraged. Okay, D. How did the soldier know that someone had made a mistake? Answer. They must have seen that the valley was surrounded by the enemy and that charging forward would mean certain death. E. How would you feel if you were with the 600 men in this situation? Okay, answer could be I would feel terrified or I would feel very scared, being surrounded by the enemy and being shot at from 3 directions. Next set of questions. A. How many soldiers were involved in the battle? 600 soldiers. B. Why is it called the Valley of Death? Because no one will survive the battle, or all the soldiers died in the valley. Okay. C. From stanza 2, who do you think has made the mistake? So answer is the commander, the captain, or the leader of the brigade. D. One of the consequences of war is loss of lives. State two others. So you can say loss of money, loss of property, loss of home, loss of pet, loss of income, loss of livelihood, and loss of jobs. Next, A. In stanza 1, what was the Light Brigade ordered to do? So answer, they were ordered to move forward on a frontal assault against Russian soldiers who were well armed, or they were ordered to attack the Russian soldiers. B. What weapons did their opponents or the enemies have? So answer will be cannons and rifles. Stanza 2. In stanza 2, what does the word dismayed suggest? So it means that to lose your courage, and then or you are overcome by fear or terror or sadness. D. Did the British soldiers feel discouraged? Why? No, they did not. Okay, they did not feel discouraged. It was because they were carrying out their duty, and if they were to die, they would die with honor. They had to obey the command of their leader. In stanza 2, what does the line "someone had blundered" suggest? Answer, the commanding officer had made a stupid and clumsy mistake by ordering them to charge the well-prepared Russian soldiers. The leader had made a mistake in giving the order. Okay, next B, write the meanings of the following lines. Number 1, they asked not to reply. So the meaning is the soldiers must not talk back to their commanders. Okay, B, 2, they asked not to reason why. So it means that they must follow the orders without asking why. Number 3, they asked but to do and die. It means that all they could do was to ride and fight and possibly die in the battle. Who won the battle? So the answer will be the Russian soldiers. Give two adjectives to describe the 600 men. So you can say that these men were courageous, brave, noble, heroic, loyal, patriotic, or obedient. Moving on, there are more questions. Okay, A. Someone had blundered. Stanza 2. Who does someone refer to? Okay, the same question. So the answer is the commander, the captain, or the leader. Okay, B. Why do you think the order was considered a blunder? Because the soldiers would fight a losing battle. It means that the soldiers would be going to a deadly battlefield, or you can say that the soldiers would die in the end. Okay. C. What do you think the soldiers felt as they rode towards the death? Okay, they were very brave, boldly they rode, and well. Do you think the sacrifice of the soldiers was worth it? State your reason. For me, the sacrifice of the soldiers was worth it because it was their duty to fight for their country, although they knew it was a losing battle. Next, who does he refer to? Answer will be, he refers to the commander, the captain, or the leader. 2. Was there a man dismayed? Not though the soldiers knew. Someone had blundered. What do these lines tell us about the soldiers? So the soldiers did not feel afraid, although they knew that they were going to the deadly battlefield. 3. What did the soldiers do when they were attacked heavily? So they rode bravely to fight the enemy. 4. Do you think we should reward the soldiers who had fought for our country? Suggest two ways. Okay, how do you think we should reward the soldiers? So answer will be, the government should give them a place to live in. The government could give them free medical benefits. Okay, next. How many soldiers were in the Light Brigade? So again, 600 soldiers. In stanza 2, which word means made a serious mistake? So answer will be blundered. Cannon to the right, cannon to the left of them. Cannon in front of them. So what feeling do the lines above convey? So answer will be panicked, nervous or anxious? If you were one of the soldiers, would you have followed the given orders? Why? So the answer, you can write yes, I would follow the orders because it is my duty to obey my leader because he knows what to do during the war. Okay, next. In stanza 1, how many soldiers are there? I think this is a favorite question because these are the questions from the tri exams from the previous years. So the answer will be 600 soldiers. In stanza 1, which line in the poem indicates that the soldiers are marching towards their death? So answer will be into the valley of death. In stanza 3, what happened to the soldiers? So answer is they were attacked by cannons in all directions. Okay, how can we honor our soldiers today? Suggest 2 ways. We should give them a shelter. We should give them a lifetime medical benefit. So that's all. We have reached the end of the lesson on the poem, The Charge of the Light Brigade. Okay, thank you. And do watch more on my channels and subscribe. Okay, bye-bye.